Captain Rick Carter checked his weapons one last time as his ship drifted silently through the asteroid field. The Earth's Fury was one of the new stealth frigates built in the secret shipyards. From the outside, it looked like a damaged cargo hauler, but inside, it carried enough firepower to destroy a council cruiser. Lieutenant Sarah Murphy sat at the pilot station monitoring the enemy convoy. Sarah was the best reconnaissance pilot in the human fleet. She could fly through an asteroid field blindfolded and land on a moving ship without being detected. Her job today was to get Rick's team close enough to strike. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV. Sarah whispered into her headset. 3 Valthani heavy cruisers escorting a supply convoy. 12 cargo ships total. Rick studied the tactical display. The Valthani ships were massive compared to his small frigate, but size was not everything in space combat. The aliens had grown lazy after centuries of easy victories. They did not expect anyone to attack their supply lines. "What kind of weapons are they carrying?" Rick asked. Sarah enhanced the scanner image. Long-range plasma cannons and shield generators. Standard Valthani loadout. "They are designed to fight other big ships, not small fast targets," Rick smiled. The human ships had been designed specifically to exploit this weakness. They were too small and fast for the alien weapons to track effectively. The quantum disruption devices would handle their shields. Commander Alex Foster's voice came through the communication system from Mars Defense Command. "Fury Actual, you are cleared for attack. Remember, we need those cargo manifests intact. Copy." "That control," Rick replied. "Beginning attack run now." The Earth's Fury accelerated toward the convoy using its silent running mode. The new engines produced almost no heat signature and very little electromagnetic noise. To the Valthani sensors, it looked like just another piece of space debris. Sarah guided the ship between 2 large asteroids, getting them within firing range. The convoy was moving slowly and confidently through space. The alien crews had no idea death was approaching from the shadows. "Target the lead cruiser first," Rick ordered. "Hit their shield generators with the quantum disruptor, then switch to conventional weapons." The ship's weapons officer, Lieutenant Tom Bradley, armed the special devices that Dr. Hayes had built. Tom was young, but he had trained on every weapon system in the human arsenal. His job was to disable the enemy ships without destroying the valuable cargo. "Quantum disruptor ready," Tom announced. "Conventional weapons standing by." Rick took a deep breath. This was the moment that would start the real war between humanity and the Galactic Council. Once they fired, there would be no going back. "Fire," Rick ordered. The quantum disruptor beam was invisible, but its effects were immediate. The lead Valthani cruiser's shields flickered and disappeared completely. Warning lights flashed on the alien bridge as their defensive systems failed one by one. Tom switched to plasma torpedoes and fired a full spread at the helpless cruiser. The weapons struck the ship's hull, causing massive explosions but not destroying it completely. The aliens inside were probably still alive, but their ship was no longer a threat. "Second target acquiring lock," Tom reported. The other 2 Valthani cruisers finally realized they were under attack. They began turning their massive weapons toward the small human ship, but Sarah was already moving. She threw the Earth's Fury into a spiraling dive that took them below the convoy's formation. The alien plasma beams fired where the human ship had been a few seconds ago. The Valthani weapons were powerful enough to destroy a small moon, but they were too slow to hit a target moving at full speed. Rick's ship came up behind the second cruiser and fired another quantum disruptor burst. The alien shields collapsed, just like the first ship. Tom followed up with conventional weapons, taking out the cruiser's engines and weapons systems. Meanwhile, the third Valthani ship was trying to escape. Its captain had realized that fighting was useless and was attempting to jump to hyperspace to warn the Council fleets. But Sarah had anticipated this move. "Jumping ahead of the target," Sarah announced as she pushed the engines to maximum power. The Earth's Fury shot forward using its superior speed to get in front of the fleeing cruiser. Rick ordered Tom to fire the quantum disruptor at the ship's hyperdrive before it could activate. The alien ship found itself trapped and defenseless. "This is Captain Carter of the Earth Defense Fleet." Rick broadcast on all frequencies. "Valthani, vessels, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Do not attempt to destroy your cargo or we will fire on your life support systems." The alien commander responded with typical arrogance. "Human scum, you have made a terrible mistake. The Council will hunt you across the galaxy for this attack." Rick was not impressed by threats. "Your choice, alien. Surrender or die." After several tense minutes, the Vilthani ships powered down their remaining weapons. Rick sent boarding teams to secure the cargo vessels and capture the supply manifests. What they found was even better than expected. Dr. Helen Grant had been right about the Council's real plans. The cargo ships were not just carrying weapons for the blockade fleets. They contained detailed orders for attacks on 17 different species. The Council had been planning a galaxy-wide purge to eliminate any potential rivals. Rick immediately transmitted the captured documents to every communications relay in human space. Within hours, the evidence would be broadcast to hundreds of worlds, showing that the Council's ultimatum to humanity was just the beginning of a much larger war. The response was immediate and dramatic. On the Zilani homeworld, warriors who had been forced to surrender their weapons began attacking Council occupation forces. The Moran Collective stopped all cooperation with their alien overseers and began sabotaging Council facilities. 3. Minor species announced they were withdrawing from the Council entirely. Commander Foster watched the reports from his command center on Mars. The first strike had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. Instead of just damaging a supply convoy, they had sparked rebellions across the galaxy. "Sir, we are receiving communications requests from multiple species," his communications officer reported. "They want to coordinate resistance activities," Foster smiled. "Put them through to Dr. Bennett on the diplomatic channel. It looks like humanity just found some allies." Meanwhile, Captain Danny Rodriguez was preparing for the next phase of the operation. Danny commanded the Terran Liberator, a fast attack ship designed to rescue prisoners and captured technology. His mission was to hit Council detention centers where political prisoners were being held. The Vilthani had been arresting leaders from species that opposed their policies. These prisoners included scientists, engineers, and military officers who could be valuable allies in the growing rebellion. Danny's job was to free them before the Council could use them as hostages. Sarah Murphy volunteered to pilot Danny's ship for the rescue missions. She had proved her skills during the convoy attack, and Danny trusted her completely. Together, they planned a series of lightning strikes on Council prison facilities. The quantum disruption technology was working perfectly. Human ships could now disable alien vessels without destroying them completely. This allowed them to capture valuable intelligence and equipment while minimizing casualties. Dr. Mary Collins arrived at the Mars facility with news about an even more powerful weapon. Mary was the lead scientist on a project called Starhammer, which could theoretically destroy entire fleets at once. But she warned that using such a weapon would cause massive collateral damage. "We should keep Starhammer as a last resort," Mary told Commander Foster. "The quantum disruptors are proving very effective and they do not kill innocent civilians," Foster agreed. "We are fighting for freedom, not revenge. We want to defeat the Council, not become like them." The success of Rick Carter's mission had proved that humanity could fight the Galactic Council and win. The alien ships were powerful, but they were designed for fighting traditional battles against predictable enemies. Human tactics emphasized speed, surprise, and innovation over raw firepower. News of the convoy attack spread through Council space like wildfire. Species that had been oppressed for generations suddenly realized that the mighty Galactic Council could be defeated. Rebellion was no longer impossible. It was inevitable. Rick Carter became a hero to the resistance movement. His name was spoken in whispers on occupied worlds where any sign of defiance meant death. The Earth's fury had fired the first shots in a war that would reshape the entire galaxy. Commander Jake Morrison stood at the window of the orbital station looking down at Earth. The blue planet looked peaceful from space, but Jake knew better. 12 billion people lived down there, and they were all in danger. The message from the Galactic Council had arrived 3 hours ago, and Jake still could not believe what he had read. Dr. Lisa Bennett walked into the command room holding a data pad. Her face was pale and her hands shook a little. She had been Earth's chief diplomat with the alien species for 10 years. She had seen many strange things, but never anything like this. "The translation is correct," Lisa said to Jake. They really want us to kill 10 billion people. Jake turned away from the window. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his face from old battles. He had fought pirates and rebels but never faced anything like this. The Galactic Council was asking humanity to do the impossible. Admiral Roy Patterson entered the room with his uniform perfectly clean as always. Roy was older than Jake and had been fighting in space for 40 years. He carried himself like a man who never lost a battle. But today even Roy looked worried. The full council message just came through on secure channels, Roy said. It is worse than we thought. Captain Amanda Stone came in behind Roy. She was Jake's second in command and his most trusted officer. Amanda was smart and brave and never backed down from a fight. She had short red hair and green eyes that missed nothing. The 4 humans sat around the metal table in the center of the room. Jake activated the holographic display and the message began to play. A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms appeared in the air. This was High Counselor Vialth of the Vialthani Empire. His species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. People of Earth, the alien said in perfect English. The Galactic Council has reached a decision about your species. Humans have shown dangerous levels of aggression and rapid population growth. This threatens the stability of our peaceful galaxy. Lisa made a disgusted sound. The Vialthani had destroyed 3 planets in the last century, but they called themselves peaceful. Jake held up his hand for silence. Therefore, Vialth continued, humanity must reduce its population to 2 billion individuals within 10 years. You must also surrender all military vessels and weapons technology to Council forces. These measures are necessary to ensure galactic peace. The alien's face showed no emotion as he spoke about killing 10 billion people. To him, these were just numbers on a report. Failure to comply will result in complete economic blockade of the Sol system. If you continue to resist, the Council will take military action to enforce this decision. You have 72 hours to accept these terms. The message ended and the room fell silent. Jake looked at his 3 friends and saw his own anger reflected in their faces. 50 years ago, humanity had been invited to join the Galactic Council. They were told it would bring peace and prosperity. Instead, it had brought slavery. They cannot be serious, Amanda said. No species would agree to genocide. Roy shook his head. They are completely serious. Our intelligence reports show Council fleets moving toward human colonies. They are preparing for war. Lisa pulled up another display showing intercepted communications. It gets worse. Similar ultimatums have been sent to 6 other species. The Solani were told to give up their warrior culture. The Moran must share all their technology. The pattern is clear. Jake studied the data. The Galactic Council was not just targeting humanity. They were moving against any species that might challenge their power. The younger races were growing stronger, and the old empires were afraid. What evidence do they claim to have against us? Jake asked. Lisa activated another file. They say human forces attacked civilian ships near the Rigel system. They have sensor logs and witness statements. It looks very convincing. Amanda leaned forward. Those attacks never happened. Our ships were nowhere near Rigel last month. The evidence is fake, Roy said. But it will convince the neutral species. The Council has been planning this for years. Jake stood and walked to the window again. Earth looked so small and fragile from space. It was hard to believe that the people down there had become a threat to an entire galaxy. But maybe that was the point. Humanity had surprised everyone with how fast they learned and adapted. Sir, what are your orders? Amanda asked. Jake thought about the families living on Earth and the colonies scattered across space. Children playing in parks had no idea that aliens wanted them dead. Old people who had worked their whole lives to build a better world were now considered enemies. Send a message to all fleet commanders, Jake said. Tell them to return to base immediately. Make it look like we are preparing to surrender. Roy raised an eyebrow. Are we surrendering? Jake smiled, but there was no humor in it. No, Admiral, we are buying time. Lisa, I need you to contact Senator Jackson on Earth. Tell him to keep negotiating no matter what. Make them think we might agree. Lisa nodded. What about our real response? Jake turned back to face his team. Activate protocol. Prometheus. It is time to show the galaxy what humans can really do. Amanda's eyes widened. Protocol. Prometheus was the most secret plan in human space. Only a few people knew it existed. It had been created in case humanity ever faced extinction. Are you sure about this, Jake? Roy asked. Once we start down this path, there is no going back. Jake looked at each of his friends. They had served together, for years through battles and crises. He trusted them more than anyone in the universe. Now he was asking them to help him start a war against impossible odds. They want to kill 10 billion innocent people, Jake said. They want to enslave our children and steal our freedom. We cannot let that happen. Amanda stood up straight. Then we fight, Roy smiled for the first time that day. It has been too long. Since we had a real war, Lisa closed her datapad. I will start contacting our allies. Some species still remember what freedom means, Jake nodded. The Council thinks humans are too aggressive. They think we are dangerous. They have no idea how. Right they are. Dr. Kevin Hayes crawled through the maintenance tunnel deep beneath Mars Colony 7. The red dust of Mars covered his work clothes and sweat ran down his face. He had been working for 18 hours straight, but he could not stop now. The future of humanity depended on the weapons he was building in secret. Kevin reached the hidden laboratory and pressed his hand against the scanner. The heavy door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside the room, dozens of engineers worked on projects that did not officially exist. They were building ships and weapons that could fight the Galactic Council. Major Grace Lewis stood near a holographic display showing the design of a new fighter ship. Grace was a special operations officer who had spent years learning how alien technology worked. Her job was to find ways to turn their own weapons against them. Kevin, you need to see this, Grace said without looking up from her work. We solved the quantum disruption problem. Kevin walked over to look at the display. For months, his team had been trying to create a weapon that could shut down alien shields and engines. The math was incredibly complex, but they had finally found the answer. Show me the test results, Kevin said. Grace activated a video file. On screen, a small device fired an invisible beam at a captured alien drone. The drone's shields flickered and died. Then its engine stopped working and it began to drift helplessly through space. Perfect, Kevin said with a smile. How fast can we build them? The first batch will be ready in 6 days, Grace replied. But Kevin, we need more time to test them properly. Kevin shook his head. We do not have more time. The Council fleets are already moving toward human space. Every day we wait, more innocent people die. On the other side of the lab, Dr. Nina Torres worked on an even more dangerous project. Nina was trying to modify human engines to work faster than anything the aliens had ever seen. She believed that speed would be humanity's greatest advantage in the coming war. Nina, how is the hyperdrive project going? Kevin asked. Nina looked up from her work. Her dark hair was messy, and her eyes were red from lack of sleep. I think I found something incredible, Kevin. Look at this. Nina showed him a computer simulation of a new engine design. The numbers on the screen were almost impossible to believe. This engine could move ships 10 times faster than standard Council technology. This cannot be right, Kevin said. Nothing moves that fast through hyperspace. That is what I thought too, Nina replied. But I have run the calculations 100 times. The secret is using 3 different alien technologies together in ways they never tried. Kevin studied the design carefully. Human engineers had always been good at combining different technologies to create something new. The alien species usually kept their inventions separate. They never imagined what could happen when everything worked together. Meanwhile, Senator Paul Jackson sat in his office on Earth, preparing for another meeting with the Council representatives. Paul was a politician, but he had once been a soldier. He knew how to fight with words instead of weapons. His job was to keep the aliens talking while the military prepared for war. The door to his office opened and a tall alien walked in. This was Ambassador Korthak Prime from the Korthak Federation. The Korthak looked like giant insects with hard shells and multiple eyes. They were the Council's main military force. Senator Jackson, the alien said in its clicking voice. Has humanity reached a decision? Paul stood up slowly. He had to be very careful with his words. One mistake could start the war before humanity was ready. Ambassador, my government is still considering the Council's generous offer, Paul said, but reducing our population by such a large amount will require careful planning. The Korthak's eyes twitched with annoyance. You have already had 48 hours. How much time do you need to count to 2 billion? Paul kept his face calm even though he wanted to attack the alien. My species values all life, Ambassador. We cannot simply eliminate people like numbers. In a computer, your species values life too much, the Korthak replied. That is why you have become a problem. Strong species control their population growth. Paul sat back down and pretended to review some documents. Perhaps we could discuss a longer timeline for the reduction. 10 years seems very short. The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. Senator, you seem to think this is a negotiation. It is not. You will comply with our terms or face the consequences. While Paul played his dangerous game with the council representatives, Major Lewis received a coded message from the outer colonies. The message came from Commander Alex Foster, who commanded the defense forces on Mars. Alex had discovered something important. 3 alien species had secretly contacted human colonies asking for help. The Zelani Republic had been defeated by the Korthak Federation 6 months ago. Their warrior culture was being systematically destroyed. The Moran Collective had been forced to give up their advanced shipbuilding technology. The Nereid Commonwealth was facing demands to abandon their ocean worlds. Grace brought this information to Kevin immediately. If other species were willing to fight the Council, then humanity would not be alone in the coming war. We need to be very careful, Kevin warned. This could be a trap to make us reveal our plans. Grace nodded. I have been thinking the same thing. But Alex says these species have already lost everything. They have nothing left to lose. Kevin made a decision. Send a message to Alex. Tell him to make very quiet contact with these species. Do not reveal our military preparations yet, but let them know they are not forgotten. The work in the secret laboratory continued day and night. Engineers from across the solar system had volunteered to help, even though they knew they might never see their families again. They were building ships that looked like ordinary cargo vessels, but carried weapons that could destroy Council warships. Dr. Helen Grant arrived from Earth with new intelligence about Council military positions. Helen was a tactical analyst who specialized in finding enemy weaknesses. She had been studying alien warfare for 20 years. The Council is making a serious mistake, Helen told Kevin. They are positioning their fleets to blockade our major colonies, but they are leaving the smaller outposts undefended. Kevin looked at the tactical display Helen had brought. They think we will surrender once they cut off our main trade routes. Exactly, Helen replied. But those small outposts have been secretly building ships and weapons for months. The Council has no idea what is waiting for them. Grace smiled. They think humans are predictable. They expect us to fight like other species. But we do not fight like anyone else, Kevin added. We fight to win no matter what it costs. The quantum disruption weapons were completed ahead of schedule. The new hyperdrives were installed in the first batch of secret warships. Human pilots trained on simulators learning how to fight enemies with superior technology and numbers. Kevin stood in the observation deck looking out at the secret shipyard hidden inside an asteroid. Dozens of ships floated in the darkness waiting for their first mission. They did not look impressive compared to the massive Council dreadnoughts, but Kevin knew appearances could be deceiving. Major Lewis joined him at the observation window. The first strike team is ready to launch. Captain Carter has volunteered to lead the mission. Kevin nodded. What is their target? A Velthani supply convoy carrying weapons to the blockade fleets. If we can capture those weapons and broadcast the cargo manifest, it will prove the Council planned this attack long before they sent us the ultimatum. Kevin thought about the risks. If the mission failed, the Council would know humanity was preparing to fight. But if it succeeded, other species might join the rebellion. Tell Captain Carter he has permission to launch, Kevin said. It is time to show the galaxy that humans do not surrender. General Kate Williams stood in the war room deep inside Lunar Command watching the galaxy burn. Holographic displays showed battles raging on 50 different worlds as the rebellion against the Galactic Council spread like wildfire. Kate had been promoted to Supreme Commander of all human forces after Admiral Patterson was killed in a council ambush. Ambassador John Mitchell sat across from Kate, reviewing diplomatic reports from their new allies. John was working harder than any person should have to work building the rebel coalition. Every day, more species joined the fight against council tyranny, but keeping them united was almost impossible. The Zilani want to attack the Korthak homeworld immediately, John said tiredly. They do not understand why we keep telling them to wait. Kate looked at the tactical display showing Korthak space. Because it is heavily defended, and we would lose half our fleet trying to take it. We need to be smarter than that. The Zilani were natural warriors who preferred direct confrontation over careful planning. They had been fighting the Korthak Federation for 6 months since their own world was conquered. Their leader, War Chief Korvax, was brave but impatient. What about the Moran Collective? Kate asked. Are their shipyards producing vessels fast enough? John nodded. Better than expected. They have completed 30 new cruisers this month, and their engineering teams are modifying our quantum disruptor technology for larger ships. The Moran were the opposite of the Zilani. They were careful engineers who thought everything through multiple times before acting. Their leader, Prime Engineer Zeltrix, was brilliant, but sometimes too cautious for Kate's liking. Captain Danny Rodriguez entered the war room with news from his latest rescue mission. Danny had become famous throughout Rebel space for his daring raids on Council prison facilities. He had freed hundreds of political prisoners, including several high-ranking military officers. General We hit the detention center on Rigel 4, Danny reported. Rescued 43 prisoners, including Admiral Thex of the Nereid Commonwealth. Kate smiled. The Nereid were an aquatic species with powerful defensive fleets. Having their top military commander back would strengthen the rebel navy considerably. How many casualties? Kate asked. None on our side. The council guards surrendered when they realized their weapons could not penetrate our new armor. We disabled their facility and left them stranded but alive. This was the new human approach to warfare. Instead of trying to kill as many enemies as possible, they focused on destroying the council's ability to fight while minimizing deaths. It was more difficult, but it prevented neutral species from turning against the rebellion. Dr. Mary Collins arrived with an update on Project Starhammer. Mary looked exhausted from months of working on the ultimate weapon. Her team had created something that could end the war immediately, but at a terrible cost. The weapon is ready, Mary announced. We can target the Council's Central Command facility on the Valthani homeworld. One shot will eliminate their entire leadership structure. Kate studied the technical specifications. Starhammer used controlled space-time distortions to destroy everything within a massive radius. It would kill the Council leaders, but also millions of innocent civilians living near the target. What about collateral damage? Kate asked. Mary's face was grim. Approximately 3 million Valthani civilians would die in the initial blast. Secondary effects could kill millions more. Kate closed the file. Keep the weapon ready, but do not deploy it unless I give direct authorization. We are not genocidal monsters like the Council. Meanwhile, the war was escalating in every sector of the galaxy. The Quantum Collective had joined the rebellion, bringing their advanced computer networks and artificial intelligence systems. The ethereal domains contributed their mysterious energy manipulation technology. Even some members of the Council's own species were beginning to defect. Captain Emma Price led a special forces unit that specialized in liberating Council supply depots and research facilities. Emma was small and fast, with the ability to infiltrate heavily guarded installations without being detected. Her team had captured enough alien technology to equip 3 new rebel fleets. The Council is starting to panic, Emma reported during a briefing. They are pulling forces back from the frontier worlds to defend their core systems. This was exactly what General Williams had hoped for. By attacking the Council's economic infrastructure instead of fighting costly direct battles, she was forcing them to spread their forces thin Every facility they had to defend was one less ship available for offensive operations. The rebel strategy was working, but the cost was enormous. Hundreds of human ships had been lost in battle. Thousands of brave pilots and soldiers would never see their families again. Kate felt the weight of every death on her shoulders. John Mitchell brought news from the diplomatic front. The Corellian Republic has agreed to provide safe passage through their territory. The Altarian Trade Guild is secretly funding our operations. We now have more allies than enemies. Kate nodded, but her expression remained serious. What about the core council species? Any signs of defection? Some Valthani military officers have made quiet contact through intermediaries. They are unhappy with their government's policies but not ready to rebel openly yet. The tide of war was turning in favor of the rebellion, but the council still had advantages. Their remaining fleets were concentrated around their most important worlds, creating defensive networks that would be very difficult to break. The final battles would be the hardest. Fleet Admiral Tom Harrison commanded the largest rebel fleet ever assembled. Tom was a veteran of dozens of space battles who had earned respect from warriors of multiple species. His mixed fleet included ships from 12 different rebel worlds. "General, we have located the Council's ultimate weapon," Tom reported. "Intelligence suggests they have a planet-killer device hidden somewhere in Valthani space." Kate felt her blood turn cold. A planet-killer could destroy Earth or any rebel world with a single shot. If the Council was desperate enough to use such a weapon, the war could end very badly for the rebellion. "Do we know its exact location?" Kate asked. "Not yet, but our intelligence teams are working on it. Captain Price believes she can infiltrate their research facility on Valthani Prime." Kate made a decision that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Prepare the entire fleet for a massive assault on the Valthani home system. We cannot allow them to use that weapon against innocent worlds. John looked worried. "Kate, that is exactly what they want us to do. They will be waiting for us with their strongest defenses, I know," Kate replied. "But we cannot let them keep a planet killer. Too many innocent lives are at stake." The preparation for the final battle began immediately. Every available rebel ship was recalled from missions across the galaxy. The Zelani contributed their most powerful warships. The Miran provided their newest technology. Even the mysterious ethereal domains promised to send forces. Captain Danny Rodriguez volunteered to lead the most dangerous part of the mission. His job was to get close enough to the planet killer to either capture or destroy it before the main battle began. It was essentially a suicide mission, but Danny accepted without hesitation. "Someone has to do it, General," Danny said. "Better me than someone with a family waiting at home." Kate wanted to refuse, but she knew Danny was right. The mission required someone with his skills and experience. She also knew that he would find a way to do it even if she said no. Dr. Collins made one final plea for using Starhammer to end the war quickly. "Kate, we could destroy their entire leadership and the planet killer with one shot. It would save millions of lives in the long run." Kate shook her head. "Mary, if we use weapons of mass destruction, then we become no better than the Council. We have to find another way." The rebel fleet assembled at the edge of Valthani space. Over 10,000 ships from dozens of species prepared for the largest space battle in galactic history. Many of them would not survive, but they were fighting for something worth dying for. General Williams stood on the bridge of her flagship looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council was preparing their own forces for the final confrontation. The outcome would determine whether the galaxy remained under tyrannical rule or became free. "All ships report ready for battle, General," her communications officer announced. Kate took a deep breath. "Signal the fleet. Today we end the Council's reign of terror once and for all." President Susan Wright sat in the Situation Room on Earth, watching the largest space battle in history unfold on her screens. The rebel fleet had entered Valthani space and was fighting desperately against the Council's strongest defenses. Thousands of ships from dozens of worlds were locked in combat that would decide the fate of the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Tom Harrison commanded the massive rebel fleet from his flagship, the Freedom's Call. Tom had been fighting space battles for 30 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. The Vilethani home system was protected by orbital weapons platforms that could destroy entire squadrons with single shots. "Focus fire on the outer defense grid," Tom ordered. "We need to clear a path for the special operations teams." The rebel ships advanced in coordinated waves using tactics that confused the Council defenders. Human vessels used their superior speed to dart between the massive Vilethani dreadnoughts, while Zilani warriors fought with reckless courage. The Myran ships provided long-range fire support with weapons that could penetrate any known shielding. Captain Emma Price piloted her stealth ship through the chaos of battle, heading for the secret facility where the planet killer weapon was hidden. Emma had volunteered for the most dangerous mission of the war. Her job was to infiltrate the heavily guarded installation and either capture or destroy the ultimate weapon. "Price to Harrison," Emma radioed. "I am approaching the target facility. Beginning infiltration run." Tom watched Emma's ship disappear from his sensors as it activated its cloaking device. Everything now depended on her ability to complete the mission before the Council could use their planet killer against Earth or the rebel worlds. The space battle raged for hours, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The Council forces had superior numbers and defensive positions, but the rebels fought with the desperation of people who had nothing left to lose. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light as weapons that could level cities struck their targets. Dr. Peter Kim monitored the battle from a command ship safely behind the main fleet. Peter was humanity's chief negotiator, and his job was to coordinate surrender terms when the Council finally admitted defeat. He had spent months preparing the framework for a new galactic government based on equality rather than domination. "Sir, we are receiving surrender offers from individual Council ships," his communications officer reported. "Several Vilethani captains want to switch sides." Peter was not surprised. Many aliens had grown tired of the Council's oppressive policies. The rebellion had given them hope that change was possible, but he needed the surrender of the entire Council leadership, not just individual commanders. President Wright made the most difficult decision of her life when reports came in that the battle was stalemated. Dr. Collins had been pressuring her for hours to authorize the use of Starhammer. The ultimate weapon could end the war immediately, but at the cost of millions of innocent lives. "Madam President, the Council is preparing to use their planet killer," her military advisor warned. "Our intelligence shows them powering up the weapon systems." Susan looked at the authorization codes for Starhammer. One command from her would unleash destruction beyond imagination, but it would also save the lives of rebel soldiers who were dying in battle every minute. "No," Susan said firmly. "We do not win by becoming monsters. There has to be another way." Meanwhile, Emma Price had successfully infiltrated the Council weapons facility. She moved silently through corridors filled with alien technology more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen. Guards patrolled the hallways, but Emma's stealth suit made her nearly invisible. The planet killer was even more terrifying than the intelligence reports had suggested. It was a massive device that could focus energy from an entire star and direct it at any target in the galaxy. The weapon was almost ready to fire, and its target was clearly marked on the control systems. Earth. Emma realized she had only minutes before the Council would destroy humanity's homeworld. She could not disable such a complex weapon quickly enough, but she could do something else. She could turn it against the Council's own forces. Working frantically, Emma reprogrammed the targeting system to aim at the Council fleet instead of Earth. The weapon would still fire, but it would destroy the enemy rather than innocent civilians. It was a desperate gamble, but it was the only chance she had. "This is Price to all rebel forces," Emma broadcast on the emergency frequency. "Clear the target zone immediately. The planet killer is about to fire." Admiral Harrison received Emma's warning just as the massive weapon began to charge. He had less than 60 seconds to move his fleet out of the firing line. It seemed impossible, but human ships had been designed for exactly this kind of emergency maneuver. "All ships emergency jump," Tom ordered. "Execute now." The rebel fleet disappeared into hyperspace just as the planet killer fired. The energy beam struck the Council's own defensive fleet, destroying hundreds of their most powerful ships in an instant. The surviving Council forces were left defenseless and demoralized. High Counselor Velth watched his mighty fleet disappear in a flash of light from his command center on the planetary surface. The ancient Velthani leader had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, but he had never imagined that his own ultimate weapon would be turned against him. "Sir, the humans are demanding our surrender," his aide reported. "They say they will accept nothing less than the complete dissolution of the Council." Velth wanted to fight to the last, but he could see that resistance was hopeless. His fleets were destroyed, and rebellions were erupting on every world his people controlled. The age of Velthani dominance was over. Captain Danny Rodriguez had been leading rescue operations throughout the battle, saving the crews of damaged ships from both sides. Danny believed that showing mercy to defeated enemies was more important than seeking revenge. His actions convinced many council officers that the rebels were fighting for justice, not conquest. The surrender came suddenly after Emma disabled the planet killer, and Tom's fleet returned from hyperspace. Council commanders throughout the system began laying down their weapons and requesting terms. The Great Rebellion had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Dr. Kim immediately began negotiations for the post-war government. Representatives from over 100 species gathered on neutral ground to design a new galactic federation based on democratic principles. The discussions were difficult because every species had different ideas about freedom and government. "The old council ruled through fear and oppression," Peter explained to the assembled delegates. "Our new federation must be built on cooperation and mutual respect." Some species wanted revenge against their former oppressors, but the humans argued for reconciliation instead. President Wright had made it clear that the goal was justice, not vengeance. Former council members would be welcomed as equals if they accepted democratic governance. The Terran Accords were signed 6 months after the final battle. The document established the new Galactic Federation, with representatives from every member species. No single world or empire would ever again dominate the galaxy. Decisions would be made by majority vote with protections for minority rights. Susan. Wright signed the accords on behalf of humanity, knowing that this moment would be remembered for thousands of years. The galaxy had learned that freedom was worth fighting for, and that even the mightiest tyranny could be defeated by people who refused to surrender. Earth's population remained at 12 billion, with no restrictions on future growth. Human colonies, spread to hundreds of new worlds as partners with other species explored the galaxy together. The diversity that the old council had feared became the foundation of a new golden age. Jake Morrison was promoted to admiral and placed in command of the Federation's peacekeeping forces. His job was to ensure that no species ever again tried to dominate others through force. The quantum disruption technology became standard equipment for all Federation ships, making it impossible for any single world to build a fleet capable of conquest. The former council species adapted to their new role as equals rather than rulers. Many Velthani and Korthak citizens welcomed the change because they had grown tired of their government's oppressive policies. The younger generation especially embraced the ideals of the new Federation. General Williams retired from military service and became the first human ambassador to the Velthani Republic. Her job was to help former enemies become friends and allies. It was harder work than commanding fleets, but Kate found it more rewarding. The galaxy entered a new age where exploration and scientific advancement replaced conquest and oppression. Species that had been enemies for generations began working together on projects that benefited everyone. The rebellion that started with humanity's refusal to accept genocide had transformed into a celebration of diversity and freedom. The story of humanity's defiance became legend throughout the galaxy. Children of every species learned about the brave humans who stood up to impossible odds and won, not through superior firepower, but through determination, courage, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for the principles they believed in. The Galactic Council was dead and the galaxy was finally free.